What happens when a nation decides to shut its doors, not to the West, but to fellow Africans? That's exactly what Gabon just did. In a sweeping decree, the government has banned foreign traders from markets and small businesses, forcing Cameroonians, Nigerians, and Malians to abandon stalls, salons, workshops, and mines overnight. But why would Gabon make such a drastic move now? And what does it really mean for Africa's future? Let's find that out. On the morning of August 12, 2025, Gabon's Council of Ministers gathered in Libreville for what many expected to be a routine session. Instead, they emerged with a decision that sent shockwaves through the country and across West Africa. Foreigners would no longer be allowed to participate in a wide range of small-scale businesses. Within hours, the decree dominated headlines, crowded radio call-in shows, and sparked tense debates in marketplaces from Libreville to Port-Gentil. The list of prohibited activities was long and specific. Street vending, mobile phone repairs, artisanal gold panning, hairdressing, tailoring, and even crop purchasing at the village level were all sectors where foreign nationals had carved out livelihoods. According to the government's communiqué, these spaces would now be reserved strictly for Gabonese citizens. The message was unambiguous. Gabon's informal economy, once a patchwork of local and migrant efforts, was being redrawn along national lines. The announcement didn't come in isolation. For weeks, rumors had circulated that President Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema's government was preparing a tough stance on informal trade. In Lambaréné, a provincial hub on the Ogooué River, discontent had been building after local traders accused authorities of assigning prime spots in a new market to West African women vendors. "How can we be strangers in our own town?" one protest leader was quoted as saying, after demonstrations erupted earlier in the summer. By the time the council met, frustration had already reached a boiling point. Officials framed the ban as a patriotic correction. "We must restore economic sovereignty and give our young people the opportunities they deserve," read the official statement, broadcast across state television and repeated in government-friendly newspapers. Ministers pledged that Gabonese entrepreneurs would be supported with credit, training, and simplified business formalities. They promised that the vacuum left by foreign traders would not mean empty stalls, but instead a rebirth of local commerce. But away from the polished rhetoric, the reality on the ground told a different story. In Libreville's Montbouet market, one of the largest in Central Africa, the atmosphere was tense. Many stalls were shuttered as foreign traders tried to understand whether the decree meant immediate expulsion or a phased transition. Nigerian shopkeepers worried about losing investments they had built over decades. Malian tailors, whose craft had become a fixture in Gabonese cities, feared not only losing their businesses but also their homes, since many lived in rooms attached to their workshops. On social media, the ban triggered an outpouring of both celebration and condemnation. Gabonese youth groups flooded Facebook and X with messages applauding the government for finally standing up for its own people. At the same time, activists and commentators warned that the decision risked inflaming xenophobia and eroding trust among neighboring states. Hashtags like #Gabonization trended regionally, alternately used as a rallying cry for sovereignty or as a warning of division. International observers took notice too. Within days, Nigerian diaspora organizations were calling on their government to issue a formal protest, while Cameroonian traders' unions demanded assurances from Libreville that their members would not be violently displaced. The fear was not only economic but also political. If Gabon's move set a precedent, what would stop other African nations from adopting similar restrictions, unraveling decades of progress toward freer movement across the continent? And yet, despite the uproar, the government doubled down. Spokespersons insisted that the ban was not anti-African, but pro-Gabonese, carefully framing it as a domestic correction rather than an act of hostility. "We are not rejecting Africans, we are protecting Gabonese," one official remarked in a televised interview. But in practice, the distinction mattered little to the thousands of foreign traders suddenly facing an uncertain future. For Gabon, the decree was more than just an economic adjustment. It was a statement of intent. It declared to the world, and especially to its neighbors, that national sovereignty could override continental solidarity when political necessity demanded it. But that raises a critical question. If sovereignty was the shield, what threat was Gabon really defending against? Was this truly about jobs for locals, or was there something deeper driving the urgency of this ban? The decree banning foreign traders was dramatic, but it wasn't born in a vacuum. To understand why Gabon acted in August 2025, we have to look at the storm of pressures converging on the government. Behind the polished slogans of economic sovereignty lies a fragile political reality, one that made this moment almost inevitable. At the heart of it is Gabon's restless youth. In a country where more than 60% of the population is under 25, frustration has been building for years. Jobs are scarce, and even the modest opportunities available in the informal sector are often seen as dominated by foreigners. This isn't new, but the discontent intensified after last year's coup, when President Brice Oligui Nguema promised reform and opportunity, but delivered little tangible change. By mid-2025, patience was running thin. The government needed a gesture, something visible, immediate, and symbolic, to show it was on the side of ordinary Gabonese. Then came the Lambaréné spark. When locals accused officials of giving market stalls to outsiders, it was more than just a dispute over space. It crystallized a broader perception that Gabonese citizens were second in line in their own economy. The protests that followed put enormous pressure on the government to act decisively. The Council of Ministers' August 12th decision was not simply an economic correction, it was a political fire extinguisher aimed at calming a dangerous blaze of resentment. But domestic unrest was only one part of the equation. There was also a regional dimension. Gabon sits in Central Africa, but its markets are deeply intertwined with West African migrant networks. Nigerians dominate electronic sales. Malians are known for tailoring, Cameroonians for cross-border food trade. These communities have built resilience and influence, and while that makes Gabon's markets vibrant, it also makes them politically sensitive. For local leaders, the visibility of foreign traders makes them an easy target for nationalist rhetoric. When economic stress grows, politicians can point to outsiders as the problem and win applause for taking action. Timing also played a role in the broader African context. Across the continent, there's a rising tide of economic nationalism. Tanzania's July 2025 law restricting foreigners in small-scale commerce set a precedent. When Dar es Salaam acted, it showed other governments that such protectionist measures could be rolled out without immediate international sanctions. Gabon, facing its own crisis of confidence, followed suit barely a month later. In doing so, Libreville signaled that it was not afraid to break with the continental narrative of integration if domestic politics demanded it. There is also the matter of legitimacy on the world stage. Governments live under constant suspicion, both from their own people and from international observers. For Oligui Nguema, presenting himself as a strong, decisive leader is critical. Cracking down on foreign traders served that image. It painted him as a defender of Gabonese sovereignty, a man unafraid to put national interest first, even if it meant upsetting neighbors. The ban, then, was not only about economics but also about power. Who has it, how it is projected, and how it can be secured in the eyes of the masses. And yet, for all the explanations, one puzzle remains. Why such speed and severity? Governments often float policies, consult stakeholders, or phase in restrictions gradually. Gabon didn't. It acted in one sweep, cutting off livelihoods and reshaping its informal economy almost overnight. That urgency suggests fear, that the government believed delay could trigger unrest it could not control. In other words, the ban may reveal less about jobs and more about a leadership struggling to maintain stability. If that is the case, then the ban tells us something unsettling. This was less an economic policy than a political survival tactic. Which leads us to the next question. What exactly are the political calculations behind this decision, and how does it fit into the strategy of Gabon's rulers? Let's pause for a second to say, big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. When Gabon's government moved to ban foreign traders, the decree was framed in economic terms: jobs, sovereignty, and opportunities. But beneath those justifications lay something far more pressing: the politics of survival. Regimes, especially those born of coups, walk a narrow line between legitimacy and suspicion. Every policy becomes not just an administrative act, but a statement of strength. And this ban, more than anything else, was political theater designed to consolidate power. President Brice Oligui Nguema, who came to power in 2023 after toppling Ali Bongo, has spent 2 years trying to secure his hold on a restless nation. The coup was welcomed by many Gabonese who had grown tired of dynastic rule, but goodwill quickly gave way to demands for change. Expectations rose faster than the government could meet them. Infrastructure remained weak, unemployment was high, and corruption was persistent. The promise of renewal risked turning hollow. Against this backdrop, the government needed visible wins, proof that it was actively defending the interests of ordinary citizens. The foreign trader ban provided exactly that. By targeting outsiders, the state presented itself as a protector, willing to draw sharp lines between us and them. It reframed economic hardship not as a failure of governance, but as the consequence of unfair competition. This redirection of blame is a familiar tool in politics, one used across the world when leaders face mounting pressure. In Gabon's case, it allowed Oligui Nguema's administration to deflect criticism from unmet promises while rallying nationalist pride. The ban also plays into urban politics. Cities like Libreville and Port-Gentil are where discontent is most volatile. They are hubs of protest, where youth unemployment and rising costs fuel daily frustration. They are also spaces where foreign traders are highly visible, operating stalls, workshops, and salons that Gabonese citizens pass by every day. By striking at these traders, the government did something symbolic. It targeted the frustrations that people could actually see. In political theater, visibility is power. Another layer of politics lies in the control of narratives. Governments often face suspicion from outside powers, including former colonial players and regional blocs. By rolling out a policy that looks unapologetically sovereign, Gabon sent a message. This administration does not take orders from abroad. It was a calculated signal to its people as well. We are not just caretakers of the state, we are defenders of Gabon's dignity. In a fragile political climate, that kind of framing helps transform a coup-born regime into something closer to a nationalist government. Yet the gamble is risky. Alienating neighboring nations like Nigeria and Cameroon could create new diplomatic challenges, especially if retaliatory policies emerge. But even here lies political calculation. Friction with neighbors can be spun as proof of Gabon's independence. By standing firm against external backlash, Oligui Nguema's team reinforces the narrative that it answers to no one but the Gabonese people. In that sense, diplomatic fallout is not a cost. It's a feature. What's also striking is how the policy was rolled out without consultation. Traders' unions were sidelined, foreign embassies blindsided, and local communities left to interpret the decree on their own. This wasn't a misstep, it was intentional. By acting unilaterally, the government demonstrated decisiveness, projecting authority in a context where hesitation could be seen as weakness. In politics, showing strength can matter more than crafting consensus. But strength is not the same as stability. By leaning so heavily on nationalism, Gabon risks deepening divides within its borders. Foreign traders are not only economic actors but also part of Gabon's social fabric. Their sudden exclusion could fracture communities, spark unrest, or even provoke targeted violence. If that happens, the very tool designed to secure legitimacy could undermine it. And that reveals the paradox at the heart of this decision. It shores up political authority in the short term, but may destabilize it in the long term. So, if the ban is less about economics and more about power, then the next question becomes unavoidable. What happens beyond Gabon's borders? How will its neighbors react when their citizens are shut out? And what does this mean for Africa's fragile dream of integration? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. When Gabon slammed the door on foreign traders, the impact did not stop at Libreville's borders. The policy has become a regional earthquake, sending shockwaves through neighboring states whose citizens form the backbone of Gabon's informal economy. If the ban was intended to showcase sovereignty, it has also revealed how deeply entangled Gabon is with its neighbors, and how fragile regional solidarity can be when politics turn inward. The first to feel the tremors were Cameroonians. For decades, they have crossed the porous border to sell agricultural produce, textiles, and everyday goods. Markets in Gabonese towns are filled with their stalls, supplying everything from plantains to fabric. Now, many of these traders face eviction or harassment, sparking anger back home. Cameroonian civil society groups have begun pressuring Yaoundé to demand assurances from Libreville, framing the policy as a direct attack on their citizens' rights. What began as an economic decree risks morphing into a diplomatic standoff. The backlash is even sharper in Nigeria. Nigerian traders dominate electronics and second-hand goods markets in Gabon cities. Some have lived there for years, building businesses that support families across borders. The Nigerian diaspora networks, vocal and organized, wasted no time mobilizing. Petitions circulated online, urging Abuja to lodge a formal protest. Nigerian lawmakers began raising questions about whether Gabon's move violated regional agreements on free movement. For Nigeria, the issue is not only about its citizens, it's about precedent. If Gabon can expel Nigerians from small businesses today, what stops another country from doing the same tomorrow? Malians and other West African migrants face similar uncertainty. Known for their craftsmanship in tailoring and small-scale artisanal mining, many now fear losing not just their livelihoods but also their place in Gabonese society. Their presence was never just economic, it was cultural. Tailors sewing traditional garments, miners sending remittances home, and women running beauty salons created cross-border ties that went beyond commerce. Stripping them of this space doesn't just alter Gabon's markets, it frays the social fabric connecting Central and West Africa. At the diplomatic level, the stakes are rising. Within ECOWAS and ECAs, two regional blocs already under strain, Gabon's move is a wedge issue. ECOWAS countries like Nigeria and Mali may interpret it as hostile, while ECAS members may see it as an internal matter. This division weakens both blocs at a time when continental unity is already fragile. And looming above them is the African Union's flagship project, the African Continental Free Trade Area AFCFTA. AFCFTA is built on the idea that African goods, services, and people should move more freely across borders, dismantling the legacy of colonial divisions. Yet Gabon's decree does the opposite. It erects barriers inside the continent. By excluding fellow Africans, Gabon undermines not just AFCFTA's spirit, but its credibility. If one member can decide that foreign traders are expendable, what prevents others from following suit? A domino effect of protectionism could unravel the single market before it takes root. This ripple effect is not just theoretical. Already, Tanzanian restrictions in July 2025 and Gabon's ban in August suggest a growing pattern. Each new measure makes it easier for the next government to justify its own. If this momentum continues, regional integration will not collapse in a dramatic confrontation. It will erode silently, one market ban at a time. Yet the danger is not only economic. Policies like Gabon's can fuel xenophobia. When a government tells its people that foreigners are to blame for unemployment, it legitimizes resentment. In markets and neighborhoods, this rhetoric can translate into hostility, harassment, or even violence. In that sense, Gabon's move risks exporting instability beyond its borders, turning neighbors into rivals and fellow Africans into scapegoats. The regional ripples of Gabon's ban make one thing clear. What started as a domestic political maneuver is now a continental dilemma. So, how will Africa respond? Will leaders challenge Gabon's turn inward, or will silence allow this to become the new normal? Let us know in the comments section. Will it make the dream of a united Africa more impossible? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.